The opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the speakers and not of DoD or any of its components.
Take me to the countryside. Gotta get out of these city lights. Drinking my cup, got me feeling right.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Rising Sun Podcast, the Texan Connection Edition. What's up, Matt?
Texas in the house.
Shit, man. So Texas in the house, dude. So we missed the last episode. We've been doing this thing where we were recording. It was like 10:30 at night for me, and on like Fridays. And you probably saw a couple of the episodes. I might have had like a slight buzz. and so
Allegedly.
2 weeks ago we were supposed to record, and I just got done with an event. And yeah, allegedly. And I told Matt, I was like, dude, I am in no condition to record a podcast right now. He was like, I got you, bro.
You can do it.
So we recaged. And we said, all right, we're going to try this again. So it's about 5:30 Friday morning. And as you can tell, I am bright-eyed, bushy-tailed over here in Japan, ready to fucking rock, man. So let's do this.
Speaking of ready to rock, have you had the new summer edition Red Bull? It's strawberry and apricot.
I have not had that.
Delightful.
That's fucking fantastic.
It's delightful. I highly suggest you getting you a can of that.
Yeah, well, we'll see if APHIS carries it, because I'm at the whims of the Air Force here in Misawa. They actually have a good selection. I usually go with like the Kill Cliff Ignite. I don't know if you had those.
We've got like a liquor store right next to our office building, and they're the closest walk to get an energy drink, and all they have is a Red Bull container. So I'm limited to the flavors of the season.
Hey. Yeah, strawberry apricot sounds pretty damn good.
I ain't mad at it. You know what I'm saying? It's pretty good.
Right on, man. All right, so for if there are any first-time listeners out there, I just want to go through a couple things real quick. So there's basically 4 editions of the podcast, right? You've got the normal interview sessions where I either have somebody online or have them in person. They usually go about an hour and 20 minutes or so, and we kind of just walk through, I guess, their background, history, their life, and any lessons that we can learn from them. Last one I did was Billy Janik. And then we do the R check, which is just me kind of getting on the mic and talking about whatever comes to mind or whatever experience I had that week. And if you get something out of that, hopefully there's a couple lessons learned from those. The third one, which I've only done one episode of because I haven't been home in a couple months, is the Millie Monthly. But I'm going home on Saturday, and she and I are going to record one and get that out there. And then this one, which is the Texan Connection, which is me and my best friend Matt. The first one, our trailer, if you go back several months ago, that one was pretty much a profanity-laced, I don't know, like catch-up session. But since then, we've tried to dial it in, to talk about things that we find important. And then, and so with that in mind, today we agreed that we were going to talk about the power of perspective. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what we're going to delve into today. So, I'll kick it off, right? So when I think about perspective, Matt, I think about, as a sailor, I can't help but think about like weapon systems. Our radars, depending on how high those radars are, on the mast of the ship, and when I say high, I mean like elevation, they lend different perspective, and essentially the higher up you are, the further you can see, right? Meaning that you can target things at a further distance, right? So for me, that's kind of a metaphor or analogy for perspective in life in a lot of ways. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Line of sight.
Yeah. So, and I think so when I carry that analogy further, it's maybe it's the older you get, or the more responsibility you garner, or the positions that you attain, they give you a different perspective a lot of people call it the 1,000-foot view, right? And whereas when you're on the ground level, your perspective is kind of what's right in front of you, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it makes makes metaphorical sense to me, you know, and, you know, continuing the metaphor as you climb the ladder of life, you know, you start to understand more and start to see more the further you get off the deck. And, you know, I can think back, you know, I can just think of my son right now, right? He's 2, a little over 2, right? It's very right here, right? Like what's in front of him, what's happening like this second.
Yeah.
And, you know, and you get to be, you know, in your 60s or 70s or whatever, you know, you look at cats like us or, you know, people 10 years behind us or whatever, and you know, just kind of laugh because, you know, they think they got it all figured out when, you know, you've seen some shit, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think that's a good metaphor and applicable in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think that I see it. So yesterday, I actually sat down with the Masao 5.6. So they're a professional association of Air Force E5s and E6s. And what they wanted me to talk about was kind of like the importance of non-commissioned officers in the military. And I talked about that for about 5 minutes. And then we started talking about, like, I guess what you would call real talk, right? Real shit. And again, like, you know, it's not to make it about rank, but their perspective just based on experience is so much different from mine. You know, the last time that I was in their shoes per se was 2008. That's the last time that, you know, that's when I was at E6, right? And so I think what's important though, when we talk about perspective is that, you know, you can't pigeonhole yourself to one perspective. Right. In other words, if my perspective is different from yours, then it's important for me to share my perspective with you, not to necessarily change your outlook, but to hopefully shed a little light on the way I look at things, and then we can find common ground. Right? Yeah. So a good example, I think, also is, you know, you and I, after 20 years of kind of, you know, slightly divergent paths, right? We have a little bit different perspectives. You from a business sense, and me from like a military sense. Yeah. You know, and I think that's just an example for a lot of different perspectives.
Yeah, for sure. There's all kinds of ways I think you can look at this. You know, I was thinking about it the other day. You know, before you brought up the topic, I was actually thinking about this on one of my drives because I was dealing with a customer, and she was like super sweet lady, right? Like we redid her siding and painted the whole house. We poured some new concrete in her driveway, you know, restained her deck, and just did a whole like exterior remodel, right? And she was like super great the whole time, until like it came time to get paid, right, at the end. And then she went from like sweet old lady to, you know, level 3 inspector, like just going. And granted, she lives in a 100-year-old house, right? So our mission was not to like, you know, bring this thing up to modern times. It was to put a, you know, fresh coat of paint on it and you know, spruce it up a bit, right? So in the moment, I got a little annoyed with how, like, you know, because I attended to her needs and I had been there almost every day for like a month, you know, just checking in on the guys and just making sure everything's run smooth and all that good stuff. And when we got to that point, there was a brief moment where I got a little annoyed, right? And I had to kind of stop myself because I got over it really quick. And I thought back to other situations with other customers who weren't as pleasant and as nice and easy to work with the entire time. They were just assholes the whole time, right? And how motivated or demotivated I was to make sure that they were happy and make sure that they were served and all that stuff. Because look, we're all human, right? If someone pisses you off, like, you know, you're not really going to be super energized to go out of your way, but we are in the service business, right? And so I just kind of had to like stop and think to myself in the moment, like, okay, what your perspective, like your view on this situation, because she was nice, like you didn't you didn't really buck it, right? Like you just did whatever she wanted and you got it done and you made sure she was happy. When other customers, your first reaction has been like, there's no way in hell I'm going back to do that, like, and so I had to kind of check myself and say, hey, look, the level of service you provide this nice lady needs to be the same level of service you provide the grumpy old man, because at the end of the day, they have the same concerns, right? They don't want to get screwed over. They want to protect their house. They want to, whatever it is that we're doing, they want to make sure it's done right. And it was just a good moment for me to kind of take things into perspective and look at it from two different angles on why my behavior changed. So it was just, and then you were like, hey, let's talk about perspective. I was like, okay. So, yeah. So just, just a little anecdote from,
right? Like,
yeah.
Like, so what kind of spurred this for me, it's funny how, again, we talk about this all the time, how things just kind of manifest themselves. Not to be all hippie vibe, but it's true, man. Like things just kind of manifest themselves.
Yeah.
And like for me, it was my friend up here, Joey Meininger. He's the command chief up here for the Air Force. He made like a Facebook post with like a meme of SpongeBob, right? And he was talking about the power of perspective. And how kind of your same thing, right? Like if you take a step back and look at it from the point of view of the person that you may be having an unpleasant interaction with, that you'll find that situation probably improves, and then you learn something that going forward.
Yeah.
Right? So I think what's funny is at its root, I think is perspective is based on our values, right? Mm-hmm. So like how we're raised, and that how we're raised, our life experiences at a young age really kind of inform how we look at life when we get into our middle age and a little bit older in life. And I think that the people that find themselves kind of miserable are the ones that can't let go of some of those deeply ingrained either value systems that they learned as a young person or bad experiences that they may have had. And that's not to say that you need to let go of all your values. I'm just saying, like, you need to be open to the fact that maybe those values that you learned are not perfect, right? Especially like you and I coming up, we came up in the 80s, and America and the world was a much different place than it is now. Yeah. Especially with regard to like how we treat people with dignity and respect, and so like it's been really not hard. It's just been like really enlightening to let go of some of the things that I learned in a small town in Louisiana as a young kid. Growing into an adulthood and respecting everybody.
Right?
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. That kind of touches on something else that came up in this vein that you and I haven't talked about, but I got my startup, my software startup. I got my roofing company. And the startup is, it's requiring me to get out there and pitch this thing and just like sell this big vision and this transformative product that we want to make or that we are making and that we're going to bring to market. And it's kind of a big lofty goal that we're going after. Right. And then you and I have something we're working on the side that's also, a big lofty goal. And I've been accused a few times throughout my life of having big, lofty, crazy goals, right? And like, just where did that come from, right? And you're acting on that now, and like just kind of this questioning of why I'm like that, and it's come up with me and my wife, so it's come up with me and friends, and so someone asked me the other day, because I never really gave too much thought. Well, I take that back. I've given a lot of thought as to where that part of me has come from, right? And it wasn't until someone asked me what my parents did a couple weeks ago that I really started like thinking about how my perspective growing up and things that I experienced and things that I saw growing up, it kind of clicked for me. My dad, he was a civil engineer by training and a concrete contractor, an industrial concrete contractor down in the refineries of Southeast Texas. So we didn't build like patios and driveways and, little rinky-dink foundations, right? Like I remember the last job I worked on with him, it was a 650,000 square foot docking station for a liquid natural gas port at the port in Port Arthur, right? So like we worked on huge, massive projects, and like it was just business as usual, right? It was just like what everybody did. You clocked in, you went to work. 8 months, 9 months later, you had this massive, engineering marvel, finished, and pouring foundations for big processing units in refineries and shit. Like just stuff that, like, looking at it now, especially now that I'm in construction, like those are massive, like mind-boggling. Uh-oh, we lost you.
You're there.
Well, I'd say we go to commercial break, but we have no sponsors.
Just keep going.
So that could be hard. There you go.
You got me?
I'm seeing over here. I can hear you. I don't see you, though.
Hey, man.
Yeah, that's what my wife says.
Hey, there's a reason why there's an audio version of this.
There you go.
You there?
Yeah. But anyway, can you still hear me? All right, cool. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it was just kind of interesting to think about, where my kind of belief system originated in. I didn't even realize it was happening. Right. But, you go to work with 15 or 20 other guys and y'all build some really big shit. Like it kind of, I guess it leaves its mark on you. So I've never really viewed things with limits. It's just a matter of how to attack it, right? Like, because I don't even do stuff on a big scale. 100%, there's lots of people out there that do it way bigger than I do.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was just
I think that you're right.
Interesting to think of.
Yeah. I think that, that as I look at, I probably couldn't have come up any differently, right? Like both my parents were teachers, and and so it was very, what's from a financial perspective, like we obviously, we didn't go hungry or anything like that, but it was not lavish. Let's just put it that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always been very like, stable. It needs to be stable, even if it's not a lot, from a financial perspective. It just needs to be stable because I can plan to it. And so, my perspective on kind of how I earned for my family, the military fit perfectly, right? Because I knew what to expect. There wasn't a lot of risk or chance involved in it.
Yeah.
And I think that, that has kind of limited me from in a lot of ways. Like, never had really a side hustle or like a lot of people do, because that involves a lot of risk.
Yeah.
And I should say perceived risk, right? Even if it doesn't involve that much risk,
right,
it just sounds scary to step off into something, big.
Right.
And so I think, again, that's kind of like limited my ability to build wealth, right? Over this last 20 years, right?
Right.
Again, taking the values that I learned from my parents, my kids don't want for anything,
sure,
right? Like they're not going hungry. They wear nice clothes. They got, things that they need and want. If they want to go out with their friends, we got money for it. It's not like we're poor, but certainly I think there's missed opportunity over, this career, where I could have taken a little more chance and maybe have, built more financial security. But again, that's just based on that value system that I was, not intentionally taught, but I learned, that I observed. Right? Yeah,
100%. I mean, I started thinking about it with me and my kids, and like them seeing me as an entrepreneur through the valleys and the peaks, right? Because it's never stable, right? It's never, it's taken me a long time to get to the point where I'm at now, where it's like somewhat stable. And even then it has its moments where you're like, and I saw my dad go through that, right? I didn't realize, all the details. You don't realize all the details when you're a kid, but I could tell like there were times when he was way more stressed out than he was at other times. And I could see like when there was big jobs or big projects or whatever going on and they weren't going as planned. And, you know, 1 minute he's throwing shit across the shop, just yelling at the top of his lungs, gets composed. 5 minutes later, he's good, goes back inside, solves the problem, moves on, job goes off, gets completed. Like that type of like witnessing that type of problem solving, that type of like way up here and then way down here. And then you get through the other side. Like that taught me a lot about fortitude and just a lot about risk taking and the fact that, yeah, sometimes you got to take a risk and sometimes shit's not going to go as planned and you don't necessarily have a team around you to, you know, always make sure you have what you need as a leader, right? Like, you know, hopefully you can depend on them to execute and get the job done, but like they're not there, you know, as your confidant, you know? And so, yeah. So anyway, yeah, definitely think parents impart, you know, those values and that learned behavior and that, you know, you're a product of your environment. So yeah, it made me think about like how I want to come off to my kids, especially since I get to, kind of start over with my son. He's only 2. So
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, by the way, man, like kudos to Kaylee, man. I saw the Facebook post, crushing it. That is incredible, dude. Like, you obviously are very proud. You should be. That's badass, man. She's doing a great job.
Yeah, man. She's a rock star. She's gotten, you know, all A's since kindergarten, finished 6th in her freshman class. So she was pretty excited about that. Killed it. Yeah. I mean, we couldn't be prouder. And, you know, it's so funny, like, you know, you got 3 girls, so, you know how this goes. And, you know, you look for yourself and your kids and you try and find it, right? And you try and like, you know, where am I in there, right? I have no freaking clue where I am with that kid, man, because she literally, from the time she's been in kindergarten and had to go to school, she's gotten herself up.
Yeah.
I mean, I made her breakfast for a long time. I mean, she's just always been self-sufficient, right? Like, and I mean, just always just does what she needs to do. You don't have to tell her to go do her homework. She hates failing. She's super competitive. She's respectful. She's getting that cranky age though. But you know, it is what it is. But yeah, no, but she's awesome, man. And then, so we got Kylie, she's the 15. We got Kaylee, who's 9, and then we got Colton, who's 2. So, and Kaylee's killing it too, man. She's her dance career, even at 9 years old, is like, it's on another level, man. Like she loves that shit. She loves it. Yeah. So it's cool.
I think it's so awesome when you see, you know, our kids and they find things that they're passionate about. Yeah. You know, that they're truly like, they are all in, you know, whether it's dance or whether it's like volleyball or, you know, maybe it's a particular class that they come home that like they want to talk about because it's so exciting. Like, holy cow, you're not going to believe what I learned today and you know, applied tech or something, you know? So, it's just a lot of fun, man. But dude, like legit, when I'm home in June, I'm excited to see Kylie and Hazel because like just observing from afar, like those two are going to like, it's going to be like stepbrothers, right? That they're going to meet and they're going to be like, did we just become best friends? You know what I mean? Like, because they are, very similar and sometimes, you know, you just meet people and you're like, I kind of like you, like, I think we can hang out.
Yeah, the last time they were around each other was,
anyways, I'm excited
that was back in Hawaii when we took a trip out there. But they were still kind of young to.
Yeah, they were little.
Yeah, they were a little young to, you know, be realizing that.
Yeah. So, anyways, okay. Total dad moment right there. Like,
what happened, man?
But like, just to segue and bring it back in. How much did your perspective change once you became a father?
It's a good question. I mean, A lot. It was kind of a, how old was I? That was 2007. So I was 26. So, and there was, it was kind of a rocky time, just with the whole scenario and just,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I was over the moon, right? And just like still being a knucklehead, right? Like still not really in my professional stride quite yet. But certainly, as she got older and things started to kind of take shape in our life. Just being a single dad, the protective nature of being single and dating and trying to have a social life, but also like involving her and just that aspect of it was different. There was a lot of even though I was making friends and whatnot, there was just a lot of her and I time when she was growing up. Just because you kind of hold that sacred and you don't really want to just bring them around a bunch of people, and so, I mean, I can't think of any like concrete, like bazinga moment where I was like, oh shit, I'm a dad. Right. Like, it was just kind of like a gradual adjustment. Right. And, I mean, you definitely take different things into consideration. And when you're thinking of things, you have this other perspective and this other like kind of consideration in things that you do and things that you think and how you go about doing things. But sure, I'm glad I had her. I mean, life would be completely different, and just I don't even know what that would look like. Right? I don't even want to think about it because it's been awesome. So.
Yeah, I'll tell you, man, like, it's one of those things that you just like, you just grow into, man. So if there's any like, new fathers out there that are listening to this and you think of yourself like, man, I kind of suck at this, like, that's kind of how it feels at first, because you're just, I mean, there's no book on it, man. There's no book on it. There's no like course you can go take. Like, you just kind of grow into it and start figuring shit out,
Yeah, it's all rooted in love, and actually, you told me something when I found out Kylie was coming, that you were, because I was a little like, bro, I don't know what to do, and you were like, you had definitely already had Millie.
This is what,
2000? This was 2000. It would have been like the 2006 would have been when it all came about. So
so Hazel was on the way.
Yeah,
Hazel was on the way, and we'd already had Millie.
Because you were like, yo, dude, it's just a kid. You're gonna be fine. Like, you'll figure it out. Like, it's gonna be weird at first, and then you're just gonna love them, and you're just gonna just figure it out, man. And like after that, you'll probably want another one. And that stuck with me. I was like, like that's actually pretty good advice. Like, we're put here to further humanity, right? Like, if there's a purpose in life, it's to keep this train moving. And so all the things you need, and all the things you think you don't know and think you won't have and all that stuff because you don't have perspective, right? You haven't seen the way that movie ends yet. It just comes to you, man. Like, God made sure we had everything we need to, protect our kids and do what we're supposed to do.
Yeah. I think look, I mean, if it was that, this is going to sound fucked up, but if it was that hard, like, there wouldn't be 7 billion people.
Yeah. It ain't rocket science. It's kind of like the primordial reason for our existence and like what we were put here to do.
Yeah. You'll figure that shit out.
I think
it may not be perfect, but you'll figure it out.
I think a lot of, I'm going to generalize and say fathers, but probably mothers too. Definitely mothers. I mean, that'd be stupid for me to leave that up. People in general are fearful of what their life is going to look like after kids, especially when they're like unexpected, right? And even when you're planning, right, it's still a scary, like, unknown thing to go into, but like, it really doesn't. I mean, I'm not going to say it doesn't change your life, because it 100% does. I mean, it does, right? Like, you ain't going out every night. You ain't doing all the things that you want to do anymore, right? But it's a trade-off, right? Like, now you have this little human being that's like perfect in your eyes, and you love them more than yourself, and it's like, you know, you have like a newfound purpose. So I think a lot of people, you know, we have a fear of the unknown. So a lot of people want to make it like this negative, fear-based like thing, and it's like, no, it's just different. It's just going to change a little bit, and you know, you're going to be a better person for it. I promise.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's exceptions to every rule, but
yeah. I think you said something that's really important, Matt, and that's, you know, you have this little human that you love more than you love yourself.
Yeah.
Right. That's it. And I think that if you were kind of to get to the root of how parenthood changes you as a person, then, all right. Anyway, so if you were to try to get to the root of how parenthood changed you as a person, if you're doing it right, if it affects your perspective the way it does most people, like most healthy people, then you learn to kind of apply those lessons that, you know, from being a parent in the rest of your life, maybe with your employees or your coworkers. And so you become this person that, you know, like Jim that I work with, you know, I don't love him more than I love myself, but I certainly am willing to sacrifice some things to make sure that he's secure. And so you kind of learn how to be this, in the military, we call it a servant leader. I think that there's something to that comes from the perspective you gain from being a parent.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's probably the most important thing. And look, there's some people that can't have kids. There's some people that don't want to have kids, and I respect that. But I think for those of us that can and that want to, I think that there's probably no more important thing in your development as an adult human being than learning how to provide and protect and take care of your kids. And, you know, so I don't know. I certainly, you know, Millie was born when I was 23. So I was a baby. Right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, almost 20 years later, though, like all of these lessons I've learned, I am such a different person now than I was then. And I can like think about so many different ways, you know, that I'm far from perfect, and I'm far from a perfect dad, but, you know, like, it's made me a better person. 100%, 1,000%.
No doubt. Yeah.
You know?
I mean,
so
it's, you know, it's one of those things that, you know, you mentioned service, right? And most people, when you say the word service, parenthood doesn't come to mind, but like, that's literally the definition of it, right? You spend your entire life making sure this little human being has what they need, has what they want, gets where they need to go, wipes their ass, puts their clothes on, learns how to tie their shoes, you know, all the things, right? Like you're like, and it doesn't stop until they leave. And even then it doesn't stop, right? Like, you know, Kaylee, our 9-year-old, right? She's in dance, and she goes to dance 3 nights a week from like anywhere from 6 to 9, right? It varies depending on what day, but still, like, Desiree's got to bring her. Desiree's got to pick her up. One night she carpools, so she gets a break. But, you know, like, you're just there, like, doing the things, right? You're just in the motions, right? And then that allows you, like you said, I think that allows you to get perspective on how to bring that out into the world in your other roles in the world, whether it be at church or at work or in the community or wherever it is, right? Like, I'd say all the time that I think kids need to do one of two, if not both things, right? I think you need to wait tables or bartend, right? And I think you need to join the military. And I think those two things and I'm not saying you have to make a career out of it, right? But like, if people had to go through those two experiences, and obviously one is less, like major implications than the other, but that understanding of service and what it means to actually like be there for someone else, right? Like your needs don't really matter in the moment of what you're doing. There's no two things that I can think of other than like being in healthcare or education, right? But like those are, and public service too, but there's just more tangible, like real time feedback in the other examples. But yeah,
I get it though, right? So if you, like learning how to wait tables, like you deal with the best and the worst of humanity sometimes, and you have to provide good customer service to the good, the bad, and everything in between. And you have to swallow your pride a little bit to provide that service to those people.
Yeah.
And you meet, like I said, this wide spectrum of people. And so I think that, obviously we both did it for a while, and I loved it. First of all, it was a lot of fun for me, right? That was a good time in my life, but I learned a lot from it. And I think that, will we ever get to a place for compulsory military service? I hope not.
Yeah.
Because if we do, I think we're probably in a bad place.
Right. I'm not saying it's a great idea. I'm just saying.
The value. Yeah. I'm trying to, right? But I think that the value of military service is twofold. It's, number one is discipline. That's the easy one, right? Like, not discipline. It starts with discipline that's imposed on you, and then it grows into self-discipline, right. And you don't have to have that discipline imposed on you anymore. But then the other thing is, especially, I think the other thing is like following something through. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like you learn how to kind of like, all right, here's the thing, and I'm gonna follow through. I'm gonna complete this thing, right?
Yeah.
Because I know I'm gonna be held accountable for it.
Right.
For me, it just taught me how to get up and actually show up on time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm sure it did other things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I tell people all the time, I'm not ashamed to admit this. I had a full ride to Lamar, man. You know this.
Yeah.
I had a full ride to Lamar University, academic, believe it or not. And I lost it after the first semester, man, because I couldn't get my ass out of bed.
Yeah.
Like for an 8 o'clock class. Like, you kidding me? Like, I look back on it now, I'm like, what a piece of shit you were, dude.
I know, you're like sending me text messages or Facebook messages. I'm like, dude, it's like 3:30 in the morning or something. Like, what are you doing awake? No, just getting up, getting ready for my day. I'm like, all right, man. Yeah. Honestly, man, like Pappadeaux's, like that's where we started. And we talked about this on one of the other episodes, like they were very, it was almost like being in boot camp, man. They had like pre-shift inspections on your uniforms, and like you had to basically memorize their training manual before you could start there. I remember like studying for like 2 weeks trying to, just learn the menu, and you have to learn all the prep times and all the cook times and all the, food safety shit that went into it. Plus, just learn how to present everything and what order you're supposed to do it and the daily specials and just all the things, right? So it was a very structured environment, right? In order to, serve people seafood platters or fucking whatever they were eating, I'll take a seafood platter split with an extra side of fries and 2 waters, please. Oh, you're one of those people. Okay.
With lemon.
Yeah. Extra lemon. Fuck you.
Extra lemon.
Fuck you. Anyway. Is gratuity in this? No? Oh, okay. Just checking. Yeah.
No, it's not.
That's what the line there is for, right there. Make sure you put something on it. Oh, man. Yeah. So, I mean, that was actually like a precursor to boot camp. So by the time we got there, I was like, oh, yeah, that's cool. I'm good with this. That's cool. But yeah, just being able to do something that like, it's not, I don't know. There's just, I feel like more people should have to go through a service-based, like, apprenticeship time in their life, right? Like even if it is a job, like you need to get that season under your belt before you go out into the world and become a selfish, entitled asshole, right? Like, because we don't need any more of those. We got a lot of those.
There's plenty of them. Yeah. I mean, so a couple points here, and one of them is an aside, as I tend to do. But so Papado was weird, man. Now that when I really think about it. So when they pulled me up to be a floor manager, right, they sent me to Houston to do like a psych eval. It was everything short of a polygraph, man. And like at the time, I was like, I guess this is normal. But now I look back on it, I was like, why was I sitting down with a psychologist just to be a floor manager at Papado, man? Like, and they got a file on me somewhere too. So like, I don't know, man. Maybe they're like down with the CIA or something. They're like collecting files on people. But anyways.
No, I mean, I know.
The other thing is,
well, I was just going to say, I know a business operator that he runs personality profiles on everybody. He does personality tests and what do they call it, aptitude or whatever on everybody he hires, because I forget the name of it. You know, they got the Myers-Briggs and a couple of other batteries that you can do, but I forget the one he used. But it nailed me to the T. And I was like the first daredevil that he had ever met, right? That's what I was kind of classified as. And they like described me to a T. But it really does give you insight into, is this person going to be good at the job I'm about to assign them to? Like, do they even have the skill sets that would even put them in the arena of good candidates? But B, it also lets them know how to interact with you and how you're going to respond and how to manage you, right? Because it just gives way deep insights on what kind of language you respond to, what motivates you, what demotivates you, what scares you, what doesn't matter. It was like all that. And he showed it to me. I was like, dang, that's pretty impressive. He was like, yeah, I've had really good success after I started administering this to all my new hires. And it just makes the organization a lot more, a lot more transparent, a lot more visibility in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I've taken since I've been in the military now, 3 or 4, I've taken the Myers-Briggs at least twice. And then I took one, I forget the name of it too, but it was pretty in depth when I was at Command Mastery School. Yeah. And so kind of to bring it back to perspective, I think that's the perspective that we don't talk about as much as we should. And that's the perspective on yourself, right? So this idea of emotional intelligence and self-awareness and knowing yourself, not just looking in the mirror and knowing your experiences, but actually knowing how you react to stress, how you, behave yourself in periods of prolonged stress. I think in those type of personality, tests, they kind of give you that insight, that perspective into yourself. And I think your friend's onto something, right? They're not cheap, first of all, right? And so that's, to be able to administer them is a little cost prohibitive to a lot of people probably as leaders. But I think it's valuable because people need to know themselves before they can know how they're going to interact with people. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I got to find it because the one he sent me was actually not super expensive. I don't think. Maybe $50 or something, but it wasn't there's some that are $2,500 or something. I'm like, what? I don't really care about anybody for that much. I mean, if I got to spend $2,500 to figure out if I like you, I don't like you. You know what I'm saying?
100%. 100%. Yeah, absolutely, dude. Yeah. So, well, Matt, I got to get going to PT, man. So let's start moving toward wrapping this thing up. So just to kind of recap, I think that we all have different perspectives on life. That's what makes us individuals. I think that there are groups of like-minded people that have similar perspectives that tend to get together. We could go into the whole kind of tribe mentality, maybe on another podcast, and trying to break free of those tribes to see other people's perspective. But we didn't really get into that today. But I think that on an individual basis, it's important to realize that your perspective, even if it's similar, is going to be, have, slight differences from people that you interact with. And it's based on a value system, but it's also based on experiences. And if you just acknowledge that, if you acknowledge that the perspective that you have is different from what other people have, then I think that your interactions with people will be better, and you'll be able to work together to build things despite your differences.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah, I think going back to probably that episode with Amanda, mindfulness is where it starts, right? You got to be aware of yourself before you can be aware of others, usually, right? And you can be aware of what's going on, but you might not fully get the whole picture if you haven't really thought about introspective things first, and like how you're interacting with people and how you're just getting along with people out there. I know I certainly have had to do lots of internal reviews on myself through the years, and carry that forward into new experiences. So hopefully there were some nuggets in here that resonate with people, but just our thoughts on perspective and how to do something with that.
all right, brother. Yeah, a couple little technical difficulties, but I think overall that was a great episode, bro. So happy Friday to me, and enjoy your Thursday night. Tell the family I said hi, and I'll see you in a few weeks when I'm back home.
All right, brother. Take care.